Hello, Substreamers. Welcome back. Or if you're new here, welcome to Substream News. I'm Joseph, your presenter. And before we begin with this week's stories, please take a moment to just scroll down and click subscribe. It makes a huge difference to our channel. No more pitch. Let's get on with our first story. First up this week, OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, is set to restructure their business. Now, currently, and kind of strangely, their for-profit business is actually run by their non-profit arm, which is designed for some good reason, but actually stifles investment. Up until now, that hasn't been a huge problem as they've been able to raise loads of money. But they're actually now looking to do another raise, trying to get a $6.5 billion deal over the line. In order to make that happen, they're going to have to make some concessions. So yeah, they're going to have to remove an investor profit cap if they're going to get this $6.5 billion deal. They were recently valued at $150 billion, which is quite incredible for the company. I have a quote here from OpenAI about this change. It says, "We remain focused on building AI that benefits everyone. And as we've previously shared, we're working with our board to ensure that we're best positioned to succeed in our mission." They then added, "The non-profit is core to our mission and will continue to exist." Well, I guess we'll see how this one will play out. Let's move on. The Magnificent Seven. Yeah, well, this is not a group of superheroes and it's not quite as cool and there's no superpowers involved. But I have to say, Forge Global, which is a kind of private investment company for stocks, they've released a list of the 7 companies they believe will be the Magnificent Seven of the future. So if you think currently there's really big companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft, something like this, right? They're saying the next generation of big companies. And I looked at this list and I hadn't heard of all of them. So I thought it'd be interesting to introduce you to these 7 companies. And the list, heads up, includes OpenAI. Okay, so let me start there with OpenAI. It's an American artificial intelligence company responsible for ChatGPT, DALL-E, which is the image generation tool, and Sora, which is not released yet, is a video generation tool. It's known for bringing generative AI to the masses. And yeah, it's, as we said in the last story, it's valued at $150 billion. Their mission is to create, now this is a direct quote, "highly autonomous systems that outperform humans at most economically valuable work." They are the company most trying to replace us. Just be aware of that. Next up, SpaceX. Probably the most famous name on this list, owned by Elon Musk. It's actually quite an old company now. It's been going for almost 20 years or around 20 years. So SpaceX is Space Exploration Technologies Corporation. It's also an American company. They manufacture spacecraft, launch services, and satellite communications. It's valued at an astronomical, out of this world, $210 billion. Incredible. Okay, next we have Scale AI, and it's a rival to OpenAI, but it hasn't had quite as much success yet. They are valued at $14 billion, and rather than kind of tailoring their services to the general public, they've aligned themselves with national interests and are working with the US government in the existential intellectual database battle with China. So they are doing stuff like self-driving cars, mapping, AR/VR, that's augmented reality and virtual reality, and robotics and more. So yeah, they're helping the government be prepared for the future. The US government, that is. Next, we have Databricks, or the full title, Azure Databricks. It's an open analytics platform for building, deploying, sharing, and maintaining enterprise-grade data analytics and AI solutions at scale. It's a cloud company. Basically, it's all about cloud data. Now, what's important here? You may be familiar with Azure, and Azure is Microsoft, but Azure Databricks is not owned by Microsoft. It is an independent company that works closely with Microsoft. And that's significant because that allows them to have their own journey and their own valuation, which is $43 billion at the last check. Let's move on to the next company. Fanatics, sports lovers, you may have heard of Fanatics. It's a huge American company. They own licenses, a lot of licenses for like sports merchandise, trading cards, collectibles. They also do sports betting, e-gaming, iGaming, special events, live commerce, loads of stuff. They have deals with like loads of professional sports leagues, stuff like that. Sports generates absolute billions, and their last raise 2 years ago valued them at 31 billion. I can only imagine that that's just gone up since. Now, Stripe on this list, it's the only company that isn't completely American. This is an Irish-American company. It's a multinational financial company, best known as a payments processor. It's something like a rival to PayPal. They were valued at $50 billion. Basically, how it helps you is if you're a merchant or you sell stuff online or you're involved in e-commerce, it gives you the potential to accept different payment methods. They also have a huge invoicing platform for doing payroll, which is big business in the US, and leads me on to our final one, which is Rippling, who I had never heard of. And Rippling is a workforce management platform that makes it easy to manage your payroll, benefits, HR, and IT in one place. It's valued at 13.5 billion. Yes, payroll is massive. You think there's millions and millions of people in the workforce, and companies need reliable payroll tools. So that's like a very useful platform. And they are the Magnificent Seven. Not as exciting as Marvel and DC, but they are real. They are our future. Let's move on to the next story. Oh, guys, I don't want to alarm you too much, but every photo, video, comment, and post you've ever made on Facebook or Instagram, put in an asterisk right here, has been used to train Meta's AI model. Now, the exceptions are EU accounts that specifically opted out, they are exempt. Private accounts, so if your Instagram's on private, nothing to worry about, but Facebook doesn't really have that option. And people who are under 18, also not included. And if you ever make posts, I suppose on Facebook, where you've put the settings to anything other than public, so friends, private, or just select people, they are not shared. So it's just public content. All of your public content from Facebook and Instagram has been used to train their model. What's worse, the worst part of this story, because that in itself is a bit of a violation that we've agreed to in the terms and conditions, is that Meta denied so many times and then admitted it. Yeah, they recently admitted that they have been doing this. Just a reminder, when using social media, you are the product, not the user. The user are the advertisers, the ones who can make money out of us. Yeah, when you're watching YouTube, the videos are not the product. You are the product because the money is made out of the viewers. Just remember that. I'm always so acutely aware of that when I engage with platforms. Now, look, guys, you can have all the data in the world, like Google and Meta, like the last story. You can have all of that data, but still get things wrong. And that's happening right now, thanks to the sun. Actually, the sun is misbehaving, I suppose. If you believe what scientists say, and prediction models and AI and all the information we have about the sun is not behaving as it should, and scientists are very concerned. So fluctuations in solar activity actually affect our climate more than anything else. And so when the sun isn't behaving as it should, the solar cycle becomes dangerous and unpredictable, and that often leads to more earthquakes and droughts and even magnetic problems. It is very serious. So I'm going to tell you a bit about this science. It says the current solar cycle is supposed to reach a peak at some point in the next 12 months, but it has not showed any signs of slowing down. In fact, the average number of sunspots that we witnessed last month was the highest for 23 years at 215.5. That's the highest number of sunspots since 2001. What is a sunspot, you may be asking? Well, it is a magnetic field on the surface of the sun, which creates geomagnetic storms on Earth, which have been getting worse and worse. 2024 is the hottest year on record and has seen some of the most extraordinary weather events in the world. We had a typhoon here recently where I live, and it was scary. It was not nice, and there were flooding. There is still flooding going on, and when it rains here, you just don't know, is this the big one? And you see damage and debris the next day, and it's fierce. Okay, moving on to the next story. It's a quick one here, but I guess it's another case of not having all of the information available to you. Leo Chris, he's a Brazilian entrepreneur, toy maker, multimillionaire. He sold his house for $79 million. Most people would be absolutely delighted. He made a huge profit on that, more than 100% profit on that house. Now, here's what's interesting is he lived next door to Jeff Bezos, although I suppose Jeff Bezos of Amazon owned the house next door. Not saying he lived there full time, but this guy wanted to sell his house and he got an offer. The offer was $6 million undervaluation. And he asked the agent, is it Jeff? Is it Bezos who wants to buy my house? The agent said categorically, no, it's not. So the guy said, okay, fair enough. He sold the house. It was a good offer. He sold the house for $6 million under. After he'd sold it, he found out it was Bezos. He'd been lied to, right? It was a subsidiary company of Bezos that bought the property. So he was not happy about that. And he was rightfully in position to sue. Now, I agree. I'm completely in Leo Chris's side of this. You should know who you're negotiating with. Now, why would Bezos obscure his identity? It's because the wealthier the person you're dealing with, the less likely you are to budge on your price. And so the ultra-rich try to hide their identities when they're doing business. Now, you can think about sports. The richer the team, or when they're owned by, say, Saudi or Qatari money, it's often that these teams have to pay extra money for players. That's just the case. The same dealing with the ultra-rich and what's happened here. So I think the biggest issue here is that Bezos did not need to squeeze $6 million out of his neighbor. That just shows kind of perhaps what kind of guy he is. Let's move on. And on a lighter note, we've made it to the end, guys. A 9-month cruise that visited over 60 locations has finally come to an end. Why is that notable? Well, it's because the ship became a viral TikTok sensation, and many of the passengers who signed up to be on board for 9 months began documenting their journeys and going viral, and people loved it. They grew big audiences. I mean, some of them already had big audiences, but they grew their audiences, and they showed different perspectives of life on board. You had old boomers, you had Gen Z, you had couples from different parts of the world, you had older siblings. It's very interesting social experiment. It was called the Ultimate World Cruise from Royal Caribbean. It started in January, finished last week. Yeah, and I think this is super interesting. Now, I don't know if I would do it personally, and I'd love to know if you would live on a ship with a bunch of strangers for 9 months. It sounds interesting, but it also sounds kind of terrifying. And it also costs quite a lot. The most basic room was $60,000 per person. The most expensive lodgings were $120,000 per person. All your food, drinks, alcohol, everything included in that price. So you could get good value out of that, but that's still quite a steep price for this experiment. If you're interested in seeing more about this, we include the links to all of our sources, all of our stories in the video description below. This one's really interesting because this story gives really good accounts of some of the guests, the passengers of the trip, and they're beautiful to read. They're really insightful about what they went through, good and bad. So I do recommend to read that. And while you're down there, our video description down here, just around that area, you'll find our subscribe button. Just a quick click means the world to us. And on that note, I want to thank you so much for viewing. I'm Joseph, your presenter. This is Substream News, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.